Recognized member for Courtenay Comox.
Madam Speaker, I would like to explore voting. Voting, which is both a citizen's right and responsibility. I recently spoke to some grade 8 and 9 students at Lake Trail School in Courtenay, and I took the opportunity to encourage them to exercise their right to vote as soon as they are able, because it's been shown that if young adults do not vote when they are first eligible, they're likely to never vote in their entire lives. Why does it matter? Our democracy is weakened when citizens are not participating, when they are not exercising their freedom to choose. That gap exposes a danger of losing the many freedoms that democracy can bring. And this is where the tilt begins, where right turns into responsibility. If we want our rights and freedoms, we need to exercise them, take them out into the light, and walk into those polling booths to make our mark. So who votes and who doesn't? New Canadians, especially those who have come from countries where democracy is only a dream, exercise their franchise often with profound appreciation. Voting is an event to be celebrated. I remember one woman who was delighted to become a new Canadian very shortly before her first vote. And that first vote was cast for me and the hope that our party brought. As she proudly said, I was one of the 9. Every vote counts. Sadly, for others, voting lacks that joy and excitement. Who doesn't vote? We know that young voters are staying away from the polls in droves, but it's not just those young voters. The numbers of voters across the board have been dwindling over the past few decades. A lot comes into play, but really it boils down to 4 basic reasons. Those reasons include education, role models, registration, and a sense of empowerment. We often hear, I didn't learn about civics when I was in school. Simply put, education is an investment in democracy. Greater attention is needed so that as those young students grow up to be of voting age, they don't feel they aren't informed enough to participate. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the Speaker's sponsorship of the wonderful program here at the Legislature, the BC Teachers Institute on Parliamentary Democracy. Teachers who are keen to better know our parliamentary democracy, become better prepared to inspire their students, our future voters, to have a stronger understanding and confidence to participate in our democracy. There are other resources, too, that civil societies have been creating as the crisis of lack of participation in elections grows. Student Vote is one such program, and there are others. But on its own, education is not enough. Role models nurture voting as a learned behavior. As one generation after another falls away from voting, there are less and less role models. Role models who make the exercise of choosing their governments a commonplace task. Teachers can be inspirational, but added to that is another layer. When people that students know and love involve them in the practice of voting, the way is paved. When moms and dads vote and involve their children in discussion about choices, about the value of voting, and by bringing them along to the polling station, then there is a greater likelihood that they will take up voting when they are able. But while education and role models open the door of possibility, there are stumbling blocks. We talk about voter registration and the need to improve that, make it easier for people to make it part of their everyday routine, not like going to the dentist, but more like going to a ball game. And then finally, we come to today's important debates and today's choices. When people don't feel that there is value in voting, then there is little motivation to make the effort to exercise their freedom to choose. Refining our voting system so that every citizen feels the power of their vote will reinforce citizens' right and responsibility to choose and strengthen our democracy. Of course, that's why I support proportional representation, to get closer to 100% of the vote for 100% of the power. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, member.